Hello and welcome to another edition of the Formula One Fans UK podcast. And I'm Reese, and I'm joined today by three people whose names fall in alphabetical order, so there should be no messing this introduction up.
Chris,
Dan,
and Tim.
way.
Yep, no American, so hey,
well,
Tim's here. Two podcasts in a row. Who would have known?
First time since the first two we ever did, I think.
Guys, probably. Guys, we've got a lot to get through tonight. First of all, I assume we're all doing okay.
yeah, not
Buzzing,
too bad,
mate.
yeah.
Better than Lewis.
Buzzing.
Good.
Better after
better.
FIA sorted their shit out. Personally.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it. We'll start with the sprint race. No, we'll start with the sprint race weekend. Qualifying on a Friday. Don't know about you guys, but I just about caught the end of it because I have a job and the FOM doesn't really care about people who can't watch it on TV because they've already paid for it.
You see, I was thinking about this yesterday, and obviously I was at Silverstones, and I thought the day was too long, and then I was watching this weekend, and I couldn't help but think, why haven't we got qualifying on a Saturday morning and P2 on a Friday afternoon, and let the teams work their cars? Because at the minute, P2 is just a waste of session with no adjustments allowed to be made. And as for the sprint race, well, I'm not going to swear because you're trying to do this without editing. But what a load of horse beep.
Yeah, I completely agree. It was just a waste. I think you got the grid's nice. It's set up, and I would have been fine with that grid going into the race. And then you've got poor Gasly, who picks up front wing damage, no fault of his own, just gets caught up in a concertina, and he goes off, and he's now at the back of the grid after a brilliant qualifying for no fault of his own.
The worse than that, he got a DNS. Didn't start because of his crash.
This whole weekend sums up exactly what I was trying to say at the beginning when we were talking about it, like before it started. It's going to impact the race weekend more than it should. Like, there's no way that Lewis should have been pushed back. No way Gasly should have been off. No way that it should have gone the way that it did. It ruins the Sunday. This spectacle that they want to do on a Friday ruins the actual main race. And
I wouldn't say it completely ruined the Sunday. It ruined it for one or two drivers, but there are some drivers who greatly benefited from the chance to qualify based on a race
they've only benefited because the other ones have done poorly. Do you know what I mean? And the fact that you're in Parc Fermé after P1 is a joke.
Yeah, I don't agree with the fact that you've only got 1 hour.
I think you look at the two AlphaTauris, both of them picked up damage, both of them had their sprint race completely ruin their Sunday. If you're going to do a sprint race, it needs to be separate from the Grand Prix itself.
Exactly.
Because the main issue with the sprint race, taking away people crashing out and falling back and all that, is there is such risk. And after 5 laps, it's much safer to hold station and think, oh yeah, here I go. I'll settle for 7th on the grid, rather than try and push for 6th, knowing that if I get it wrong, I damage the front wing and drop all the way to 20th.
Yeah.
And because there's that risk, because it affects the Grand Prix, where the points are actually given out, the real heavy points, there's no chances taken.
I did see a suggestion that I loved for setting the grid for a sprint race if you were to have them, which is make the grid order the finishing order of the previous Grand Prix, and then not have it set your race, like your grid for the following day,
But
but
that
just literally
doesn't.
have it as a separate race.
See, what's the point? Because if you're putting the guy what's the point in having the fastest guys at the front for a sprint race?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The sprint race, I think, if you want to make, if you wanted to make a sprint race, I would have, like you said, I would have it separate to the race, I would have a completely separate car, because at the minute the cars are burning through engines they shouldn't be. So I would have a separate car with a separate engine and put a young driver in there and let them gather experience by having a race in one of these cars, entertaining the fans and not affecting how anything's going to run in the race over the weekend.
But what happens if we put say a Williams reserve driver in a Mercedes or whatever, and they tank Lewis's car, or they tank Bottas's car, or next year George's
No, he's saying have a separate car, so you have a third car per team, presumably.
Yeah, but then what's the point in cost capping it if we're going to introduce a third car just for sprint races?
It needs to be cost effective. You can't have a third car, but I think you do need an extra engine for a season.
Every team does carry a third car. It's a load of crap saying that nobody does it anymore, because they do. They've got a full third car in that lorry and then some. Yeah,
but that's there in case of emergency. It's not there to be used. You don't run that third car intentionally. You only run that third car if you destroy your chassis in practice or qualifying.
The T car was only there in an emergency whenever they had it.
Right.
And it's just the fact that it's sitting out the back.
But I get what you're saying. But if you're saying you use that third car for a reserve driver, and say they total it, and it can't be used, and then one of your actual your main drivers totals their car, then you've got no team car. You going to take 4 cars to a race weekend? Because if you're trying to keep costs down, it does get ludicrous.
Well,
you think they say when you crash a car, it costs $2 million.
I have an idea. Put them all in Renault Clios and go for it. Because they're cheap.
I'd love to see all F1 in every car.
So have F1 drivers racing a different spec on a Saturday afternoon? I would get behind that. That would be brilliant.
Just have them in the Clio Cup.
Yeah, Clio. Clio Cup series. Go for
it. It's a no-win situation, isn't it? Nobody's ever going to agree on what is the best way forward. But what most people can agree on is that it's a waste of time. I nearly swore there. It's a waste of time. And somehow Braun is sitting there thinking, wow, this is the best thing ever. Look at it, it's so successful. What's he watching?
No.
I used to have respect for that man.
The only people that benefit from sprint races are the people at the circuit, I think. That's it.
No.
Because they're getting an extra show. No teams, no people at home. I think it's purely the atmosphere at the circuit that benefits. That's it.
Because obviously I've been to the sprint race at Silverstone, and the only positive that I got at Silverstone was the build-up to the first lap. You had a race start. That was it. After the race start, I was falling asleep on the fence.
It's boring because of the way it's run at the moment. The drivers don't want to take the risk because it's not worth the risk. If you have a separate sprint race where you say you take your top 12 from qualifying and flip that around for a sprint race, and that race has no reflection on the Grand Prix itself, because you're still going to start in your normal Grand Prix position like they do in Formula 2 and Formula 3. Have that reverse grid based on qualifying, and then you've got something that's entertaining, because then you've got guys going for it. You've got say Lewis Hamilton starting 12th, Verstappen starting 11th, knowing they need to get at least 3 places to get points.
What about in a sprint race, the top 10 is set and they don't race, and it's only the bottom 10 that race for
the free championship points
to 20.
Oh, and also for the championship points.
What about that?
Race, sorry, mate. Race, your idea wouldn't work, because if you're setting a reverse grid for something that's not going to affect a race, the drivers are going to protect their cars, and they're just going to put them around at the back.
Well, no, because you still get a chance of points. You still get a chance of points. Say you're racing. Say you qualify Saturday morning, and then you have your sprint race Saturday afternoon. And then, if you do crash your car, but then you've got a whole day to repair your car.
Chance of points,
and it was the same because drivers didn't half-ass it on a single lap when they were going for it for qualifying. No one goes through Monaco thinking, "Oh, I better not take all the wall here," or risk hitting the wall because I don't want to damage my car for tomorrow. You go for it.
Yeah, but
If there's points on the line, say you've got 10 points on the line if you've got 10 points on the line for finishing first, and you're a midfield car that's got a reverse grid pole, you're going to go for it.
But you've just said it's not going to affect the grid for the next day.
It doesn't affect the grid, but I'm saying you still get points.
Those
so like
points,
Formula 2, just do it like Formula 2.
To quantify me going out and destroying my car and maybe not starting the race the next day, where I'm already on pole, I can get 25 points.
You say that, but I think if you're going from 10th, if you qualify 10th and say you're up there for the start of the reverse grid, you're probably going to want to risk it because you've got a chance of higher points than you might have had in a natural Grand Prix.
Yeah, but if you're Lewis Hamilton in 12th, you're not going to want to come through. You're going to sit back. I like Dan's idea.
Fucking hell! I'm gonna drop dead.
What I was going to say is, can we move on? Because we've got an awesome Sunday race to talk about. We've got all the drama, and we've just wasted 10 minutes on a sprint race. That wasn't even worth our time. So
we did say 10 minutes for the sprint race.
We are trying to set the world to rights. Don't interrupt us, okay? We know everything. FIA know jack.
We can't even agree on what the correct solution is, though. So how are the FIA meant to do it?
Well, does that not make us perfect for running Formula 1 if we can't agree?
Exactly, yeah.
Mr. I'll bounce in and out every other odd episode when I can't be bothered turning up. When I'm not climbing a hill. Back off your soapbox. Get on the floor.
Right, let's move on then.
Sunday.
All right,
the race.
let's move on. And we'll start off, because I think this needs its own talking about, McLaren.
Come on.
Sorry.
There's a lot of fist pumping going on, which is brilliant for a podcast.
Brilliant.
Chris, you go on.
And, oh man, I had tears in my eyes at the end. It was brilliant. Danny Rick's smile was amazing, and I absolutely loved Lando coming on the radio and, saying, I'll stay here, keep me here, I'm fine. Let's just keep this one too. The kid, I can't remember his exact words. But
didn't he ask?
He asked the question.
He asked if he could stay where he was.
Are we staying like this? I'm pretty sure he
didn't ask that. He didn't ask it that way.
Yeah, but he said he was happy to stay like that. He said he was happy to stay 1-2.
Which
if it was
is
best for the team.
A lot of respect points there. The kids overflowing.
Yeah. Dan?
Yeah, absolutely amazing drive by both of them. When Lando dipped that wheel in the gravel or the grass or whatever it was, and dust flied up, I'm like, oh, man is on a mission now. See you later. It was amazing. But let's just bring a quick point as well. That Red Bull is dog shit behind a car. It couldn't even catch a McLaren. It can't even catch a McLaren. But yet it sails past the Mercedes.
But the Mercedes couldn't catch a McLaren?
No, the McLaren was fantastic this weekend.
When Danny Rick got out of DRS, I was like, fair play, Danny Rick. And he was off.
Yeah.
Well, that is the issue with modern F1, is that it is still so hard to follow. And Monza, I don't know why they use for a sprint race, because it's so hard to overtake there, because you need to be a good second lap fast. You need to be right on the bumper of someone else going through, I'm going to call it Parabolica because I didn't learn the new name, going through Parabolica.
Yeah, it's definitely Parabolica.
Just call it Parabolica. Okay. So you got to be on the bumper of someone to have a chance of an overtake, and that's just the way modern F1 cars are. You can't follow, so you can't go on the bumper of someone through Parabolica. What I will say is I love the strategy in McLaren when they said the best way we can maintain this result is by going fast and driving away from them. Mm-hmm. I love that. There was no management. It was just a case of go for it.
That was it. Just keep driving. See if someone catches us.
And it went so quick as well. I was sat there thinking, oh, God, I'm waiting for them to mess it up. It's going to go wrong at some point. Bottas or Perez is going to come into it. And before you know it, it's lap 49. You're like, oh, there's only 4 laps to go.
Didn't he lead like 47, 48 laps or something, didn't he? Something like that?
Yeah, 48 of the 53, wasn't it?
He led from lap 1, with the exception of that. He was always the net leader, regardless of...
Yeah. But that's That's impressive.
Yeah. The two things I will add to what everyone else has said, because obviously we're all delighted for McLaren, I think, this evening or yesterday. Chris mentioned Lando's radio message. What I also loved was his radio after the race. He was as excited for the team, knowing how much it meant to the team, as he was for himself for getting his best result. Probably more so. And it's just great to hear drivers, obviously Ricciardo's excitement as well to be back on the top step. That was wonderful to see.
Yeah.
Also, he hasn't had much of a mention, but I think I questioned him when he came in. We've got to give some credit to Zach Brown for the job that he's done in turning that around. Took a sunken ship and raised it from the depths. Absolutely brilliant job by that hierarchy. Go on, Chris.
Yeah. Does this mean Ricciardo gets his NASCAR drive?
It does.
Danny Rick, they said NASCAR, but it must mean IndyCar. Because Zach Brown's got no interest in NASCAR.
It's not Zach Brown, he promised him it, is it? It's somebody else who's in that area. I'm sure it is a NASCAR drive.
Someone in that area, yeah.
But it's got to be pointed out as well that McLaren earned that win yesterday. You know, it didn't fall into their laps like it did for Gasly last year. They earned it. They went out and took that win yesterday.
Oh, yeah. He might well have won if they had...
for Ocon as well.
Yeah.
He might have well have won without other events.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that, and to be honest though, with how it was at the start of the race and Hamilton and Verstappen not being able to get past Norris and Ricciardo, what's to say it was going to be different at the end of the race? Has anyone got anything more to add on McLaren?
No.
Resounding no. Okay, so quickly what we'll do then, we'll quickly mention our sponsors. As always, this podcast is sponsored by Apex Tracks. For all your 3D printed track wall art needs, head to apextracks.com. That's APEXTRAXS.com. And what we're going to do now, guys, is we are going to fly down the order, and we'll start with thoughts on Valtteri.
Qualified with the fastest lap of the weekend on the Friday, won the sprint race comfortably with a solid drive, and then 20th to 3rd can't be understated. I feel like Lewis in a Mercedes would have done the same or even challenged the two McLarens a bit more, but 20th to 3rd is a wonderful drive, isn't it, really? Anyone does that, you should probably appreciate it. So, yeah.
That's
sorry,
it.
just on.
I
just want to mention something on Tim. Sorry, don't you think that with Valtteri and his drive away during the sprint race, given Lewis's situation at that point, he shouldn't have been backing the cars up?
No, I think it was best there to not risk it and just take that extra point away from Verstappen. Because if he backed him up and Verstappen got close enough, we don't know what could have happened. Or if Valtteri didn't build that lead, he could have easily dipped a wheel on the grass, lost 5 seconds, and then Max gets the win. So I think they did the right thing there.
Also, I'll add to what Reese has just said. If you saw Valtteri's reaction after the race yesterday, he doesn't give a shit about Lewis anymore. Let's be honest.
I personally don't think he's given a shit about Lewis for a while.
Yeah,
He'll be a team player, but he just don't care.
Yeah. If it's the last race of the season and Lewis needs a point to move out of the way, he'll do it. But I don't think it's going to be every time.
I don't know.
All right.
It's just they're just. I haven't even. What about next? I haven't even said anything about Bottas yet. What are you saying next one? I'm just saying. Yeah, but I'm just saying. But he did exactly what he was meant to do. He took the point away. He took his penalties early. He pushed his way back through. That was exactly it. But I don't think even if he'd have been up there a bit further, I still don't think he'd have caught Danny Rick. I really don't.
Okay. Well, next up was Leclerc in 4th.
Shall we do Ferrari together if we're doing this quick?
Yeah.
On the face of it, it's a good race for Ferrari, but in light of what happened at the front, it's an awful weekend for them. 4th and 6th, if you'd offer them that before the weekend, they'd have thought, lovely jubbly. If you then tell them McLaren 1-2, it's not so great for them, is it? McLaren
1-2 with a McLaren fastest lap.
Yeah, as bad as it gets.
And a Red Bull and a Mercedes, both out of it.
Yeah. Right, let's...
I think Ferrari failed to appear at their home Grand Prix and it's disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, Sainz, of course, had his crash in FP2, which once again
that
is
was
just put unnecessary
strange,
stress on the. It put unnecessary stress though on the sprint race for Ferrari, because you've had a crash in the morning where, in a session that means absolutely nothing, it's pretty much what the old warm up used to be.
Yeah, but he's on a run of 3 crashes now, and it's not like him.
It's strange, yeah. And to each one, you've struggled to see what he actually did wrong.
Yeah, especially that one yesterday. Or Saturday. It's you got to wonder if they've something that they've changed. One of their updates is maybe took that car out of his control a little bit, because his confidence is shot.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. Mind you, 6th place was still a solid result. One driver we do have to address on his own, because his teammate is going to be talked about later. Perez, shocker of a weekend. Is a case of you overtake off the track, you give the position back straight away. You don't go, no, I think I was forced off, I'm allowed to keep that. He made that mistake in the sprint race. He got reprimanded. He made the mistake in the race. He got punished, and it's absolutely right.
But I'm confused on how many times does he have to do it before he realises that he can't do it anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but
it's getting to the point now where the Red Bulls, genuinely, I believe that they are perfectly right every time, and that everybody just has to move out of the way for them, and every part of the track that they want is theirs. Like, I think there's that mentality with them, and it's becoming very annoying that they should have to be told 20 times, don't do something.
When something like that usually happens, the teams will message Michael Massey and ask for direction. So why didn't that happen? They obviously, every other team does it. Why didn't they?
There was an interview with someone from Red Bull who said that they asked the question and got no response. They asked the question of the FIA and got no response.
Because Michael Massey's fed up of listening to him. They're fed up of him. But it's like Red Bull's like Michael Massey's like whiny ex, just keeps on in his ear. He ain't got time for that, has he?
They probably sent it by email.
Probably.
Right? Yeah, probably.
We'll move on to, I guess, position 7 was Lance Stroll and Vettel in 12th. They got a bit elbowy with each other, and Vettel was really in the wars. He must have been hit 3 times.
Vettel had an awful weekend, really.
He did, but I don't know how much of it was his fault, because he just kept getting hit. He got hit by, I think, Tsunoda. He got hit by
Ocon.
I think he didn't have Ocon, and then Stroll took him pretty much off the track, and he lost 2 or 3 places because of it.
Who didn't Ocon hit?
That's a good point.
Maybe this is why he was so good.
He goes from race winner to bumper cars.
This is Ocon, because he did so well to win that race, and the reason he won it was because there was no one in front of him to hit.
But are the team going to have to get involved to say, all right, boys, you need to calm it down because you've turned a possible 7-8 into 7-14? Is it how many times do they keep letting them get away with this?
It just seems to be historic with that team. I mean, before that was Force India, they kept crashing into each other. But I mean, one person
but
who
they've done
benefited
themselves out of a heap of points.
Yep.
Again.
They both. Well, I'll tell you who benefited though was Alonso in 8th. No one here likes Alonso, so we can skip past him.
I've got nothing to say this week. I had my say last week. It's all good.
Oh, thank God! All right, we like Alonso, but he drove well. No one here has anything against Alonso. It's just we want to get past him gushing over him for an hour. What we can do though is some gushing for P9, George Russell. So understated, the fact he got points again. Everyone was like, "Oh, he got points."
It's to be expected now, isn't it?
He's going to be getting more points next year.
It's to be expected now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now he's got one. If he doesn't get points for the rest of the season, it's disappointing.
But he was slow in that Williams all weekend until the race, and then managed to pull that points finish out of the bag.
Both Williams did get very helped out by the safety car. It was kind of unnoticed, but especially Latifi, but Russell as well.
I mean, Latifi, you say he was helped out, but you've got to put your car in the right place, and he's got that Williams into 11th again, and Well, he didn't score points. You have to say he is fully deserving of keeping his drive.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And it was one of the drivers we did call to keep their spot, so we're good.
Yeah.
Yep.
You wouldn't know that, Tim. You weren't here.
I was there for that one.
No,
Actually.
Tim was. He did put his
Yeah,
predictions in. So, what we will say is we also had Giovinazzi keeping his seat, and man, that guy can't catch a break.
It's not going to happen.
He can't catch a break, man. He's had 2 brilliant qualifying sessions. He's driving for his seat, and twice he's fallen down the order through. Yeah, sure, okay, potentially pushing too hard, but I mean, he did very well to not stick it in the wall when he got tagged by signs in the actual at the start of the race.
I think that was Giovinazzi's fault, and not Sainz's fault.
It was Giovinazzi's fault, but I mean, he did no. It was Giovinazzi's fault. There's a reason he got a penalty for it, but I think he did very well to keep it so as out the wall as he did. He only lost the front wing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's just yet another case of coming onto the track unsafely, isn't it? It's that pressure to keep the position.
I think that's the difference between a driver of the standard of Giovinazzi and Hamilton, though. Because Hamilton had the same thing happen.
We'll mention.
No. We'll
mention
that
later.
We need to discuss this in full at the end.
We will discuss it before the end, but I'm just saying the difference is there.
All these points. Well, yeah, but that's class, isn't it?
Kubica 14th.
Can I just say on Kubica, what a waste of an opportunity to put a possible driver into that seat. They had the F2 field there.
It's a waste.
F2 field there, and they wasted an opportunity.
Yes, yes, Chris. That's 2 things we've agreed on.
I don't like this.
Bloody hell.
I think it would have been Callum Ilott, but he had his IndyCar race. But he's in the IndyCar, so he was already away that weekend.
I think he's going to bet himself into that IndyCar seat.
I am just thinking that the whole reason that Kubica was in that seat was because he's contractually obliged to be in that seat in a reserve driver situation, and he is the driver who brings the most money to that team. You can't. He's bought the seat, and so he's probably entitled to have it.
It's a big mistake by the team.
15th place was Mick Schumacher. He had a scare. Oh, Schumacher hit Vettel. That's who hit Vettel. But yeah, Mick had a bit of a rough one. He got spun out by Mazepin. Mazepin got a time penalty for it. So and probably the hairdryer treatment from Steiner.
Talking to Schumacher, let's not forget that this Wednesday, Schumacher on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
And if this podcast isn't released by Wednesday, we hope you enjoyed the Schumacher documentary.
Yeah, check out the Schumacher documentary from last Wednesday.
Yeah.
Good to think about. But let's face it, that is going to be the most streamed thing on Netflix that day, hands down.
Yeah,
by a long way. Mazepin.
I've got a reserve sign on my sofa.
Yeah, Mazepin. No comment.
Yeah, just get him out of F1 because he's not got the talent.
Yeah, how many take him and his dad and their money and just do one? Like,
how many people can you hit in one lap?
See you later.
There are many more Russians who are good enough to take a seat that you can get a lot of money off of.
And then Alpha Tauri.
Let's be careful now. Let's be careful, people. Let's be careful because we are going to Russia next. I really like Mazepin. I
like Russia. Russia's very nice.
I'm a big fan of Russia. Yeah, here's quite warm in the summer.
We don't have to be careful. The teams do. I told you with the old Russian sniper. Ping ping, tires out.
Have you never heard of Novichok? Heard of Novichok?
Novichok.
Never.
Yeah.
They'll get you in your living room, mate. That's what they'll do with Novichok.
Yeah.
Mate, let them come. I'm that bored of it right now. They could do it. Make me happy.
I'm Mazepin's biggest fan. I am his biggest fan. He deserves his seat.
All right.
I'm not being funny, right? They can't. But they can't be that good if they couldn't even stop a little booby touching reaching the internet. How good are they?
Well, Dan, you've done it. You finally brought up Mazepin catching tits on the podcast. We've avoided it for this long.
No. I said boobies, PG.
He did say boobies.
Can I just say
It's already not PG.
You're the one that lowered
Can I
down.
just say I'm surprised that it wasn't Josh who brought it up, but
Poor Josh isn't even here to defend
Where
himself.
is Josh?
Me and Dan are getting on really well on this one because I respect him for saying boobies.
Yeah, I'm just trying to
grown
say
up.
Reese time.
should we do Alpha Tauri? Can we move on from boobies?
Yeah, can we get onto AlphaTauri, please? We'll get onto AlphaTauri, the world's most expensive fashion brand.
Is there anything to talk
Gasly
about?
Tsunoda.
Yeah. Well, how it all went wrong.
Gasly was brilliant on Friday. Then he crashed, and then they fixed the car. But like always, you can't tell if you fix the car between qualifying and the race if it's going to be okay because you have no on-track running until you do your out laps.
For me,
Tsunoda,
that's the prime
don't know what happened
example.
with Tsunoda. He just got a problem on the grid, didn't he?
Yeah.
On the grid, yeah.
Like
it's
hydraulic
brakes,
issues.
or hydraulics. Gasly is the prime example of why the sprint doesn't work.
Yep.
Because
I think we said it at the start.
we
didn't
said that already.
I just think it just needs to be said again because that pissed me off.
Well, gentlemen,
The time has come.
gentlemen,
love
it is time. We have 14 minutes on the
gonna-
clock to
Are
talk
we going in
about.
alphabetical order?
No, well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read out what the FIA said, and I'm going to say one thing that was said to me at work today that I think is quite pivotal. So, anyway, just quickly find the statements.
You haven't even got the statement ready.
As we all know, Verstappen and Hamilton crashed, and Verstappen has been given a three-place grid drop. The stewards heard from both drivers, and they came from the video evidence that car 33 was predominantly to blame. Like earlier in the season where it was Hamilton, they've issued a penalty to the guy more predominantly to blame. During the hearing, the car number 33 asserted the cause of the incident was that Hamilton, I don't know why I'm calling it, he said that Hamilton squeezed him into turn 1. The stewards observed the CCTV footage and said that car number 44 was driving and avoiding the line, although his position caused 33 to go onto the curb. But further, the stewards observed that car 33 was not alongside car 44 until significantly into entry of turn 1. And that was too late for car 33 to have the right to racing room. Like I said, the stewards have emphasised that this has nothing to do with the championship. This is just based on the solo incident, and I think they got it spot on. Maybe you could have said 5 pace, but I think once again, if you said 5 pace, it's probably the bias of the championship coming into it. Now, before we get into it, I do want to say one thing I was told at work from my colleague, and he started the season off and he said, I'm rooting for Verstappen this year. Not because I don't like Lewis, but because I want someone else to win it. He has said that he has completely lost the respect and how he doesn't want him to win it because Verstappen he's lost respect and he's losing the neutrals through the way he's acting.
Right, well, I've only got a little bit to say on the accident. I think the stewards got it right. I think Verstappen, if he had a little bit more of a grown-up head on him and followed Lewis's example, he'd have bailed out and everything would have been hunky-dory. However, looking at the aftermath of that accident, I'm horrified that a car has hit Lewis with a tire on the head. And what is even, I just, praise BDLA and what have you. The drive shaft must have been broken or something because when that hit his helmet, the left rear wheel was under par and the right rear wheel wasn't. So that could have hit him, still spinning at 70 mile an hour. And the halo stood up, the T-bar, the roll bar stood up. The halo needs to be raised. And this is something that's worried me for a while. But the drivers' heads are too far above the halo. And George Russell especially, when you see him, his head's right up there. And after what happened yesterday, you've got to question, is that another safety concern that we've got to look at?
I don't know so much if it was about the height in this case, though, because the impact came from behind. I think that was always a natural risk with the Halo, because you have to have such of a size of an opening for the drivers to be able to escape quickly. And so you will have that hole in the top. And thankfully, it was going slow enough, and as Lewis Hamilton said, it hurt when the adrenaline wears off, but he's okay. Dan?
Obviously, I just sent us some pictures to the group chat, right? And it shows at no point was Max, 1, close to being ahead of Lewis, or 2, did he have enough room to complete the corner unless Lewis yielded the corner, like quite substantially, that he would have to have literally let Max through on the inside for him to complete that pass, right? Now, you go back to lap 1. Max did the same to Lewis. Lewis backed out. Lewis went across the curbs. Lewis tried again. At what point did the FIA have to give him something more? Because it's basically dangerous driving at this point. And we saw the fact that his inability to yield has caused like that horrific crash, and it could have been way more than it was. But I don't think a free pace grid penalty is enough, personally. And didn't he get a penalty point as well? Maybe
Two
He
penalty
would have got
points.
penalty points. All grid drops that are caused by the driver come with penalty points.
But I think it's the FIA knew they had to do something, had to make the whole situation whole again by feeling Mercedes had to have something because they were so far wrong at Red Bull. But they've done it so, one, it doesn't impact the championship too much. But let's be honest, if Max gets pole, he's back to third. Chances of fourth. Well, yeah, fourth. But the chances of him getting into second or first within the first couple of laps is relatively high. So what does he get penalised for this?
Well, what I'd like to say is that the grid drop is always a penalty, because you are really at Sochi. Pole position or second position, those are the two. Whoever gets the best start usually doesn't keep it down to turn 1. If you qualify first, you're fourth with that penalty, and you could argue that's still quite a good place to start from. However, if you qualify second, you're on that third row, and when you're on that third row, you start to get backed up towards the melee, which we saw happen with Vettel when he got hit by Kvyat twice. And I feel it's the right. I feel it's the right penalty. I feel it was ill judged, and it deserved a penalty. If you thought it was deliberate or not, I'm not sure. I'd like to give Verstappen the benefit of the doubt and say it wasn't deliberate. But Damon Hill, who probably knows better than anyone about being hit deliberately by a title rival, said it was deliberate, and Toto Wolff called it a tactical foul. Tim, you had the longest to wait to talk. Go for it.
Just on your point about the being deliberate, I don't think it was intentionally, let's take each other out from Max. But I do think there was an element of, if this goes wrong and we both end up out, then it's better for me than it is for Lewis. And I think that's where the late, I don't think if it was somebody else that he would have been so willing to stick the car in there. Whereas with Lewis, he knew that if they both end up out, that's not the end of the world for him with the lead they have.
All right.
Who do you want to go?
Exactly, right? If Max crashes into Lewis, the only person that loses is Lewis. He has nothing as a consequence for his action, really. Okay, yeah, he's got the penalty, but he still leaves 3 points ahead. And the fact that I still can't decide whether I'm really, really angry at him not checking on Lewis when he left the car. I'm still not sure whether he had seen him trying to move or felt him trying to move. and he thought, all right, if you're going to do that one, I'm getting out of the car, I'm not checking on you. But still, I think he should have checked on him. The fact that your rear wheel is dangling over another driver's head should make you at least go like, are you right, buddy? Are you good? Or something.
Couple of things. Don't agree with you there, Dan. Hey, it's not Max's job. It's not Max's job to check on Lewis, and Lewis was trying to back out of the sandpit at the time. What we were saying earlier, race about the halo. We've always been chasing perfection when it comes to safety. We've never been ahead of it, and we should have been ahead of this because it had the potential to be bad. And that's why I think the halo needs to be raised.
No, I agree with the raising. I just don't feel that the raising would have stopped this incident where it came down on top of him because of just the wheel falling into the hole.
Angle. It's such a unique angle and a unique situation.
That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. This accident has happened now, and this accident can happen again. It's like when a car goes off the side of a circuit, and they have to throw a safety car out, and they always say it's not because of where the car is. It's because if it goes off there, another car can go off there while it's there. You know, it's lightning striking twice, and if something's not done to fix this incident, then it happens again. A lot of people are in the shit because he could have suffered from a crushed vertebrae from compression
could have been
on his head. And as for what Tim was saying,
what about
he
Max?
was saying about Max, that is Senna to a T. That was Senna, where he would always put himself in the position where either you would get out of his way or you would crash into him.
Yeah.
That is literally it. He's trying to get that kind of bad boy, what's the word for it? Like a bad boy attitude where it's you either move or we're crashing. And that's the wrong attitude to have.
Yeah, going further on the wrong attitude, I'm going to read one more thing here, and it's Max Verstappen's latest Instagram post, where we all know these guys put their statements out when they had an accident or whatever. Now, considering over a day has elapsed since this crash, we'll go with what Verstappen said after the race, after the steward's hearing, which was, "Today was very unfortunate. The incident could have been avoided if I had been left enough space to make the corner. You need two people to make that work, and I feel I was squeezed out of it. When racing each other, these things can happen, unfortunately." Now, that is a kid in my eyes. That is someone who hasn't matured, and it's extraordinarily frustrating when you see something like that. Now, if you compare that to what Hamilton said after Silverstone, "Today is a reminder of the dangers we face in the sport. We should never take lightly the risks. I send my best wishes to Max, who is an incredible competitor, and I'm glad he is okay." I don't need to read anymore because it's all about him just saying how happy he was with the win. But that is the difference in maturity.
If Lewis wanted to run Max off the track, he should have done it coming down the main straight, where he gave him plenty of space.
Yeah.
You know, why wait to squeeze him off at the chicane?
In that one instance, though, Lewis wasn't allowed to move over until the end of the pit lane exit. So that potentially...
Yeah, but he did that. He did that, and then he went over. Sorry, Tim. He did that, and then he went over.
Yeah.
And squeezed Verstappen to the point where he was legally allowed to.
Yeah, Verstappen should have backed out.
Yeah.
Which shows that Lewis didn't have any interest in pushing Max off the track.
Yeah.
Well, this and also Hamilton, like Stuart said, Verstappen made the move so late he didn't have the right to racing room. But Dan, we'll let you wrap this up, mate.
That Instagram post has infuriated me even more than I already was. I'm sitting there, mate. I'm bubbling. I'm raging. The fact, that is exactly what I said. He feels like he is entitled to the room. if you can't get next to Lewis and get your car in front of him, why should he give you a corner, Max? Why? At that point, you need to back out, go left, take the rumble strips. I'm raging, mate. Raging. Like
Lewis did in turn 4.
Exactly. But he's just a petulant.
My final comment on it was, you know how Red Bull knew they were in the shit? Because Christian Horner came on TV afterwards and said, "Oh, it's a racing incident."
Yep.
I don't think anybody's to blame.
Yeah, this was going to be.
Yeah,
that's how you know. That's how you know Red Bull's in the shit.
That was going to be one of my points as well. Is that usually in these situations, if you know you're in the wrong, you say it's a racing incident, and the team that have been wrong say it's their fault. So, yeah.
Did anybody watch the interview at the end with, I think it was Johnny, what's his name?
Johnny Herbert?
The XF, Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, Crofty and Massa.
Yeah, they had Felipe Massa
and Massa. And Massa said it was a racing incident. And I was like, mate, like, whose camp have you been in all weekend? Like, whose snake oil are you selling?
As he forgot to spar with.
But then you've got Johnny Herbert just shouting over to them. And you've got like Damon Hill like shouting, and it was like to see them two old school drivers going at it. They were like, yeah, like it's disgusting, like blah. And then you got Massa sitting there in his little F1 t-shirt, going, no, it's a racing incident. No, it's not, Massa. It's not.
What was interesting about that section of the after race show is that at that point, almost everyone you spoke to had a slightly different opinion, which is. You know, it's difficult for imagine being the stewards when you've got all the biggest names of the sport or the recent history of the sport all voicing their opinions very publicly and being slightly different.
You lost yourself halfway through that sentence.
I what?
You did. You lost yourself halfway through that sentence. And with that, I thought it's a good time to wrap it up. So, guys, thank you very much for listening again. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you do, please check out the link in our bio. It's got a link to all our socials. It'd be great to connect with you on more. Until next time, thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Cheerio, guys.
See you later, guys.
I had to lower my face to put them into my own boobies at that point.